Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jan Szrewiński. With the transatlantic relations between Brussels and Washington becoming more complex, Europe faces the challenge of balancing its alliance with the US against cooperation with other countries, such as China and India. What opportunities and challenges may arise from this situation? And how are the European Union and its individual members dealing with the new reality of international relations following Trump's rise to power? Joining us now is Jagannath Panda, Director of the Stockholm Center for South Asian and Indo-Pacific Affairs. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you.
So first of all, let's talk about the deal that was struck between India and the European Union, a major trade deal that was 20 years in the making. What benefits does it bring to the table?
For both the sides, there are a lot of benefits. If we try to understand from India's point of view, India needs to have free trade agreements with a lot of partners in the global politics, and in that context, EU is the largest market that India should have and must have the free trade agreement. Both in terms of market accessibility, in terms of technological engagement, in terms of supply chain networks. This is going to be quite productive to India's engagement with the European Union. If we try to understand from European Union's point of view, European Union needs economic stability, economic partnerships, moving slightly away from its normal engagement with China and with the United States. And I think in that context, EU needs new partners, and India fits into that kind of strategic menu in the broader European framework. And more importantly, what it allows for the European Union is to go deeper into Indian market and engage with different segments of Indian society, which is a much more diversified and broad Indian society, and to be a part of market accessibility, which it was not able to find it over the last 2 to 3 decades. So it is a win-win situation for both the sides. The way the agreement has been concluded, though it is yet to be signed, but I'm hopeful that it is eventually going to be signed and ratified, and we'll see a game-changing happening between EU and India, economic and strategic partnership engagement.
So now, do you think that European countries, the United States also, given the current situation around the world, given, for example, the war in Ukraine, tend to extend their own thinking, their own geopolitical standards a bit too far upon countries like India? India has a policy of not aligning with one particular power, but instead dealing with a variety of them. And now it makes sense from the standpoint of India itself, but also when Europe looks at it, it would rather have a clear statement like we're against this, we're supportive of that. And the question of Ukraine, for example, well, it has been leading to some misunderstandings there. How would you say relations should be shaped between partners that follow slightly different trajectories, but are not, rivals? India and Europe, or India and the US are not rivals, but they have different priorities, right?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question in the sense that if you see Indian foreign policy over the last 1 decade or so, one concept which is gaining prominence in Indian foreign policy and coming, to the international forums again and again is the concept of strategic autonomy. India loves talking about strategic autonomy because it's a rising economy, it's a rising power, and it has to maintain equicordial and a kind of balancing relations between the major superpowers, be it US-China rivalry or the major power blocks in the global politics. What has emerged very interesting between EU and India, FTA negotiation and its successful conclusion, is that both sides have acknowledged that both sides are going to rely on strategic autonomy. And for Union, time is, pressure on Greenland is mounting from Trump administration. The Ukraine war is not really going anywhere in terms of finding a solution to with the Russians. So this is an interesting time also for European Union to talk about strategic autonomy and find new, reliable and long-term partnerships with countries which are gaining influence and becoming quite influential in global politics. And in that context, India fits into European Union's strategic account. And in that context, I think strategic autonomy has become the thread between EU and India today. And in that context, both sides are willing to collaborate, keeping the pressure from the Trump administration, as well as keeping in mind that China is not an easy actor to deal with. China's economic pressure, Chinese, security mandate in global affairs, and the way China deals with some of the Central Eastern European countries, aligning with Russia and giving Russia a blank support on Ukraine war. It only becomes an opportune time for European Union thinkers and leaders to see India as a long-term viable and a stable partners to rely on.
Now, a quick question, because the United States has recently made efforts to reduce the ability of Russia to make money on oil, but they went about it by introducing tariffs, for example, on India, the secondary sanctions strategy. Now, what would you say about this? Because quite recently, even Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the European Union is putting trade first because it didn't want to follow up on that, and that was because they were negotiating this deal with India. Do you think coercion will work, or should the US also offer some incentives to India to abandon perhaps Russian oil?
I think in the longer run, Trump administration will revise and renew and revisit some of its decision. But yes, you are absolutely right. At this moment, there is a pressure tactics, is a coercive strategy to pressurize India, imposing tariffs. We know for a fact that a lot of countries, including United States of America, is importing a lot of oil from Russia. For a long time, after the Russia-Ukraine war has started, many European nations also used to import oils from Russia. So it is not India which was only importing oil, and therefore, in that context, I think the logic is quite absurd, quite strange. But I think for European Union, it is a smart decision. I think if you see, India hosted both the European Union's Commission President as well as Council's President in India as the Republic of India's chief guest. And in that context, what is really coming out is very interesting. European Union is seeing India as a new partner to rely on in a new context, not to really pressurize India on the Russia account, because they understand that India's relationship with Russia is linked with historically from the period of Soviet Union. India is a arms importer from Russia, but this does not necessarily limit India's relationship with either European Union or with other global powers, including United States. In fact, if you see with the United States, India has been expanding its defense and strategic partnership with the United States over the last 10 years, realizing that India is importing a lot of oils from Russia and also purchasing a lot of arms and ammunition from Russia. But Trump suddenly coming to power and pressurizing and imposing a coercive strategy is really something, and this is definitely not going to work in the longer run. And I'm sure moving forward, United States of America are going to review and realize its own mistake and probably reach out to India in a new context.
So speaking of the way that Trump has made some countries perhaps not rethink their alliances completely, but look for other opportunities. We have British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Beijing. Do you think that this could be a sign of the UK seeking some greater balance in international relations? And what are the risks of going too far in cooperating with China today?
Of course, I think for UK it's a greater balancing foreign policy approach they are currently implementing. Prime Minister Starmer going to China and meeting Xi Jinping. It's a pragmatic decision to stay engaged with China, and I think most of the countries, particularly from European networks, including UK, which is not a part of EU today, they also realize that maintaining some kind of cordial economic partnership with China and having some kind of political stability in its foreign relations approach and staying engaged with China should be the order of the day. And therefore, Starmer's visit is a pragmatic one, is a smart one. And the kind of business delegations are visiting with him is also equally, tells the story that UK needs to engage with China when it comes to economic and do business as usual. Do not want to really, hamper its own relationship with China for the sake of, following what the Trump administration is saying or mounting the pressure on many other countries, including over the United Kingdom.
Jagannath Panda was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Milan Sheravinsky. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news, updates and commentary.